Joining me right now to talk about the life and legacy of Ted Turner is someone who does not need an introduction in this city, but a longtime sports writer and a good friend of mine, Jeff Schultz. Jeff, appreciate the time because we need more of it when it comes to talking about Ted Turner. We could talk all day about the life and legacy that he leaves behind, but where would you start? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Ted?
Well, it's funny when I heard about his passing, Maria. I was thinking, how do you sum this up in one soundbite? And I actually was texting with Stan Kasten, who has worked with him for a long time, and he said he's impossible to sum up in a few words or even a few paragraphs, and that's so true. Look, I grew up in California, so I wasn't here in Atlanta. Unfortunately, when he managed the game, I would have loved to have been in the stadium that day. But he is one of the most interesting and impactful people of his generation or any generation. We could start with CNN and everything else, but just looking at sports, I mean, he made me watch the lousy Braves in the 1970s when I was in high school. Why? Because they were on TV. The whole WTBS thing. He made me interested in the America's Cup, and I don't exactly come from a family of yachtsmen, but he was steering the boat, and I was watching because of Ted. He made me interested in wrestling, even though I think it's the dumbest thing in the world, but he found a way to put it on TV and make it interesting. And look, he had his faults, honestly, as a sports owner, but he also was a visionary with TBS, with TNT. There was, of course, like I said, that day when he managed the Braves, which didn't please Major League Baseball too much. But he was like, what the hell, I'm going to do this. He didn't fire his manager right away, Maria. I don't know if you don't know that. He actually just sent Dave Bristol out on a 10-day scouting trip. And he jumped in the uniform and went in the dugout. And there's a great story about Phil Niekro, who was scheduled to pitch that day. He was at the batting cage, and he turned to Ted and said, "Ted, what are you doing? And are you actually managing this team?" And he goes, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "Where do you want to bat in the lineup?" I said, "Like, Ted, I'm a pitcher." He goes, "I don't care. I'll put you first. We've lost 16 in a row." It's like, that was Ted. And I think, honestly, we don't necessarily need more of those kind of decisions in sports, but I think that whole freshness and uniqueness and transparency is often missed.
I love that story. I think not a lot of people know that he managed an entire Major League Baseball game, so I love the recounting of that story. Yes. That's one of the many things that made him so unique. And another thing is what you're talking about, growing up in California, and all of a sudden you're watching things here in Atlanta. What Ted did for the city of Atlanta, what do you think that ultimately will be at the end of the day? And even as we're standing here today, what do you think he did for this city?
I mean, he made it visible. He put, obviously, Atlanta on the map with CNN, but he put the Braves on the map. He called them America's team, even though they were a lousy team. Honestly, to this day, I was very upset when Turner Field got renamed after a sponsor. It's kind of where we are. But I think more things need to be named for really the pillars of the sports community here in Atlanta. And obviously, it starts with Ted and certainly Hank Aaron. He honestly, the NHL came back to Atlanta in the late 1990s because of Ted. Now, he had sold, by the time the team actually started, I think he had already sold to Time Warner. But the NHL actually wanted to come back here because of Ted and his TV impact. So he's had a huge impact. And again, that doesn't mean every decision was great. He did bat Niekro ninth that night, which was good. But I think overall he was just such a huge figure, and he'll sorely missed. He's been missed for a while, honestly.
Jeff, you spent so many years closely with the Atlanta Braves. What do you think people will remember most about Ted, aside from, of course, that story with him and Phil and him managing that one baseball game?
I think probably when they went to the World Series in 1991, if memory serves. Where he was, in the stadium with Jane Fonda. They were together at the time and doing the chopping, just having so much fun. And that's kind of how you want your owners to be in sports. You want them to be supportive. You want them to have the financial resources. You don't want them to be a knucklehead or make too much news off the field. And I'll always remember the pictures of Ted at those Braves games when the Braves got good in the 1990s, and he just seemed to be having a great time.
Perfect. Jeff, thank you so much. Appreciate all of the stories about him and all your memories surrounding Ted Turner.
Thank you, Maria.